Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Coaching from the Couch. This is your Washington Commanders update, and I am your host, Candi CWall Waller, checking in as I love to do all throughout the calendar year. And guess where we are on the calendar? Yes, welcome to NFL Week 1, ladies and gentlemen. It has arrived. It's like the time goes by so fast, but at the same time, it's like it takes forever to get here at the same time. So I hope you all are excited that now through 2026 or the top of 2026, there will be football, NFL football, as well as college football and all the things going on this time of year. As you all are gathering on in on this live, if you are new to the Bowie Television and Coaching from the Couch series family, welcome, welcome, and welcome. If you are returning, welcome to you as well. This is the first live of the year. We've been doing lives for a long time. So we're going to really try to get going on all of the lives. I see comments sharing, welcome back. It is good to be back. If you're watching on Facebook, definitely hit the love, like button, thumbs up if you're watching live on YouTube. I have some housekeeping items I want to make sure get squared away. We try to make this as interactive as possible. I see Eric Jessup has joined as well. And so we have some notes here for everyone, right? If you're watching Bowie TV's Coaching from the Couch Live, here are some updates in terms of how we're going to list off questions and prioritize all of your amazing comments. Feel free to send a super chat or a gift during the live. We appreciate it. We thank you so much. We think it's dope that you're here anyway. So we'll definitely try to get to as many of your comments, but certainly we'll prioritize those that are sending the super chats and gifts and all of the things. If you are watching on TV and you missed the live, hello to you as well. You can find us throughout Prince George's County, Maryland, on Comcast on two channels 190 and 1097. And in terms of the lives, so you all know I'm traveling. So the real try is to every day after the game day at 7:30 p.m. are the lives, unless of course there's otherwise noted. That's what it says. So sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't. So, but that is generally how we try to do things. But try to stick with us. You all, again, if you're watching through the Facebook or if you're watching through the YouTube, we're going to get right on into it. I see Lamar Bland has joined as well. We're going to really try to just hop right on in. If this is your first time watching, right, we play a game called What's Your One Word? And I pop this up at any given moment of the day and time. Who knows? But in this moment, this is what's your one word to share how you're feeling about the Washington Commanders season, going into the season, right? At this point in time of the year, every single fan in the NFL, every single team, you name it, everybody thinks their team is going to the Super Bowl. Everybody thinks that. And everybody's excited. It's fun for many. So I see that Kevin Williams says he's excited. I'm seeing all the things: excited, hopeful, optimistic, to name a few. Some of the same words popping up there. So all I have to say is this is going to be very interesting. This is going to be very interesting. And that's my one word. It's interesting. I'm interested, and this is going to be very interesting for many different reasons, which we could probably get into and dive into on another show. But for now, that's my one word. Okay. So you all have gotten the ground rules. Feel free to share super chat. Thanks. All of those good things you're watching from YouTube. We'll try to get to as many questions as possible. If you are a returning watcher, you know that I play clips, show pictures, all of that during the live show. So that it in through our segments as well. We should do that as well. But a lot to get the conversation going. So as we're sharing the videos, definitely drop all of your thoughts, because guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to dive right on in. We like to play this game as well. And this is something that is near and dear to my heart, and I think many of you all's as well. It's use your clues. And this is where I end up sharing just some insights, what I'm seeing, what I'm sensing, and what I think is happening and going on. And I'm saying, break out your notebook, break out your pen, because I think it's important that you use your clues on this one and make some notes. Okay, so the whole objective of this show is to recap training camp, recap preseason, and really think through and say, okay, so what are the expectations for the season? What am I expecting to see? What is going to happen here? Let's get on into it. Training camp was quite the roller coaster, wasn't it? I mean, I still can't believe and we're going to get into probably later on, you know, Terry McLaurin finally getting his contract extension. Brian Robinson Jr. getting traded, not on my bingo card. I'm just going to be honest. That was not on my bingo card. But that's where we're going to start. We're going to start with, and we're going to kind of work backwards here. So work with me. So we're going to start with the Adam Peters and Dan Quinn press conference. After the initial 53 roster was set, we're going to start there. And we're going to start with this clip of Adam Peters thanking Terry McLaurin.
As well, really want to thank Terry, and it wasn't always easy, but we had a lot of talks along the way. He came to my office a bunch and really had a lot of cool conversations, and just want to thank him for his professionalism throughout the whole negotiation, and really pumped to be moving forward with him for a long time now. So
I think that I posted, if you had not watched that press conference, please ensure that you do in its entirety. And the reason why I wanted to clip that is because I remember the day of the burgundy and gold scrimmage where some of the media captured Terry McLaurin and Adam Peters talking. And what I shared with folks that asked me and shows that I was on, I shared they talk all the time. Like it's not a war. It's not like a battlefield in there in Ashburn. They communicate all the time. And what I really picked up on, and the using your clues, is I appreciate Adam Peters acknowledging Terry, right, and his professionalism, as well as acknowledging Terry and sharing that Terry had come to this office and they had been talking a bunch, and they had been, just working through it. And as he said, it wasn't always easy, but I think everybody has gotten what they wanted. So that ended up a highlight of training camp, because that was certainly what is up and down as some things were going, I felt like at times regarding practice or what I may have been watching or what have you. There was always like that cloud of when is Terry going to sign? So it happened. With that, Brian Robinson Jr. getting traded. So I want to play this clip first of back from August the 4th when I initially asked Cliff Kingsbury about the running back room. Hey, Coach, I know you mentioned Bill a moment ago after Ben's question. So what have you seen so far out of the running back room?
A lot of guys that can play. I think there's probably 6 or 7 guys that'll end up being on a roster this year out of that room, which is a credit to those guys and the job Coach Lynn does with them. But, Bill, for a young guy, loves football, competes, very explosive. Like, he got ruled ineligible at Arizona and stayed and played scout team the whole year, which is like nobody would do that, you know. So that tells you right there the type of passion he has for it, and it shows up. So that was a exciting kind of pick for us and what he's shown so far. And then Austin Eckler looks as good as ever. We got B-Rob, we know what he is, C-Rod, J-Mac, Kaz, Felton's done good. So I think there's 6 or 7 guys that are going to make rosters, and so it's been great competition in that room.
Great competition in that room, and I saw it early on, hence why I started sharing that message, asked that question, and then what do you know? Brian Robinson Jr. gets traded. In the Adam Peters and Dan Quinn press conference last week, Adam Peters was asked about Brian Robinson Jr. I thought it was important to share that clip as well.
Going back a week to the Brian Robinson trade, was there like a point over the summer where you thought, hey, we got a lot of guys here, we might have to look at something, and then did that accelerate at any moment as other players started to show out?
Yeah, there's a lot that goes into something like that. You know, one, there's, you know, interest around the league. There's, you know, the competition we have in that room, which we thought, you know, was a really good competition throughout. And so, you know, when, you know, you start breaking things down and you understand, you know, Brian's going to be a free agent after the year, and he's making a little bit more money than some of the other guys in that room, and just understanding, like, okay, you're going to have to make a tough decision. And Brian's done a great job for this organization. He's been through a lot here, and, you know, to his credit, he was really going for it again. He had a great off season. He was in great shape, and you know, it wasn't really anything, you know, overly, you know, it was just all positive. It was just the fact that we felt really confident in the other guys in that room. So when we had the ability to get something for him, you know, we decided to go ahead and do that.
That was one of the things that I was happy to hear Adam Peters publicly share, and that was Brian Robinson Jr. was having a great camp. That was one of the things that I was sharing on shows. Like, he's having a great camp, and he looks amazing. Like, he looks in great shape. He's doing all the things, but hey, business is business. And Brian Robinson Jr. has value. As San Francisco 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan shared, he was happy about it, knowing that B-Rob was available. So they took the opportunity. So I shared all that to say those were like the two highlights, right? Is Terry McLaurin going to get signed to this contract extension before the season starts? Brian Robinson Jr. getting traded. These were big topics, right? And we definitely, absolutely, as you all know, want to wish Brian Robinson Jr. nothing but the best. As you all have shared online and will share here on the show, that he was an absolute joy to cover on site. Truly, truly enjoyed covering Brian Robinson Jr. and can't wait to see what he does in San Francisco as well. Let's keep it going into camp. So we've started from like the highlights of some of the big headline topics, right, that happened and was going on. Now let's move a bit into some of the things that I just picked up on along the way, and some of the players that I was really, really, really impressed with. So we're going to circle back to some things as well, or an underlying message here of what I really gathered in this year's training camp, the second season of this regime, not my second season on site, but this system, this program, if you will, their second season. Really enjoyed Mikey Sanderstill in this cornerback group. Earlier in camp, I asked Mikey about his areas of improvement, aha moments, looking at his rookie season and going into his second season. Check it out.
So what has been the biggest difference for you in, obviously last year you're a rookie, so now you coming in your second year in this system, what's been some of the like biggest takeaways or aha moments, like, wow, I didn't realize this last year for you?
I think you kind of just find yourself, at least for me, I've found myself in a spot that is like, okay, here's what I did last year. During the off season, I was watching film on, just doing the self-study tape. And my off season focus was how much better can I get at the things that I'm already good at? Because I feel like often we lose sight of focusing on the things that we are good at because we want to put so much emphasis on the things we aren't good at. But you still have to sharpen both sides of the sword. So I wanted to make sure I kept making sure I'm good at the things that, like, I keep working at the things I'm good at, but still work on those things that needs to improve. And that's finding what that looks like on film, asking my coaches, what do you guys think I need to improve? Where can I make jumps? And then just emphasizing my film study, because I want to be able to go out there and just have everything just be second nature to me, you know what I mean? So like it gets to a point where everything you do during the week should just be, the tools you're sharpening, so that way when you come to Sunday, come to game time, you're not worried about anything anymore. You're just playing free. You know what the calls are. You're not second guessing anything. You believe what you're seeing on film. Then you're just going out there playing with the talent you have, using the tools the coaches have given you for the week. And then you're just going out and just making plays.
I was so super impressed with Mikey Sanders still this summer. Last year, again, rookie, you don't know, everybody doesn't know, new system, but he was so actively engaged in every single practice. And I truly am looking at that cornerback group. If you break out your notebooks, or if you feel like you want to Google it real quick, I mean, you can just look at the difference in the roster from last year and this year. And I'm also then looking at the difference in just players, right? We could talk about the addition of Jonathan Jones. We could talk about a healthy Marshawn Lattimore, which we could talk about that for an extended period of time, of course. We could talk about the rookie Trey Amos, right? Outstanding young man, as many of them are, but just seeing it's different with Mikey Sanders still. So keep your eyes locked in when you talk about the last year's draft class and the second year for those players in this system. And you look specifically at the second year in this system, but the rookies, it phenomenal training camp from Mikey Sanders still. So put his name down, lock his name down, you all, and just circle the cornerbacks, because of course, as you know, looking at the schedule, there's going to be some terrific bump for them all season long, of course. So this will be a great season for him, I think, right? This is all a little bit of what I'm thinking, what I'm saying, just all the things. Definitely Mikey Sanders still comes to the top for me, and based on what I witnessed over the entire summer, right? So this is OTAs, training camp, preseason, all the things. In one press conference, because you all know how I think. If you are new here, you may not know. But for those of you who have been with me for a bit, you know that I really like to understand what I'm watching. And I ask questions and I gauge in a way where I'm trying to just confirm what I am watching. So one day, I asked Coach Quinn in a press conference about what makes a good practice. How does he know what's his signal that they really got after it? Check out his response here.
Hey, Coach. Good morning. So kind of along those lines, when do you say what does a good practice look like? So how do you know when they really got after it or you weren't pleased?
Yeah. First thing I want to make sure is the effort's right, Candi, in terms of the finishing of the end of plays. I want to see the details and the focus there, not the pre-snap foul of, a neutral zone infraction or an offsides. The combative ones, I'm holding, will correct. I want to make sure those ones, the substitutions, when I see that part going, communication, energy, execution of the plays, that's it. As a coach, I also have to remind myself at times, like them failing is part of the process. I just want to make sure that that's going full speed to do that. Failing, jumping off sides, that's not failing to me. Like when you're going for it, and you made a mistake. And so I want to make sure the growth and the learning comes from like pushing something to try it. I like this, I couldn't do that, I tried this technique, it didn't work. You do need that right now. And that's what a good practice to me looks like. But it starts with energy, communication, details. I don't want to see people hurry, but I want urgency. I know that's like, well, what the hell is the difference, Dan? I can feel urgency the way they get to the line of scrimmage, the way they communicate, the speed of the motion, but not being like, you know, wigged out. Like, hey, man, energy, communication, and then I like seeing that over and over again. So it's the challenge of it, but it's at the end, the competition still, Candi. Our best versus their best. That's how you get really good ball. And it's going to go one or the other. So at a practice, it's not like everything's great because somebody's winning and losing the play. So it kind of should go back and forth. If it slants one way all the way, I'm like usually concerned on that too. So a lot of long answer, but it's fun to go through.
And you know, you all know I love to get into it and dig into those details because I need to see if what I'm seeing is accurate and are those signs of a good practice, because so much early on in training camp, and I know you all have all the dope and amazing questions. How's this player looking? How's this looking? How's that looking? And I'm like, well, you know, just got here, not real sure, but here's what I am seeing that is great. I saw a lot of, and continue to see this as well throughout training camp, a lot of attention to detail. And where Coach Quinn mentions the energy, the communication, the urgency. I looked at my notes because I was like, okay, what are the things I wanted to remember from what he said? The urgency. Absolutely saw all of those things, especially the communications. Back in June, after OTAs, the media was able to talk to assistant coaches and position coaches. And I hope you all are subscribed to Bowie TV and you are watching it or watching us on television in Prince George's County, Comcast channels 190 and 1097. And we shared some of, you know, that content with you all. And one of the key takeaways from the position coaches and assistant coaches were the communications then. In June, they were so super impressed with how well the team was already communicating. And so that continued to get better. I could see it visibly, like, oh, you know, I was impressed with that. I will say that. Definitely on the energy and the urgency as well. I want to go back to a point that Coach shared in that clip that I think it's an important point. If you're watching it live or if you're watching on TV and want to go to the YouTube channel and want to rewind it for a moment, rewind it back because he talked about pre-snap penalties, right? Coach Quinn does not like those at all. Everybody, okay? He does not, write it down. Don't forget it. He doesn't like those at all. And so there were moments where pre-snap penalties happened and it was like, oh, what do you do? You know, but it's preseason, okay. But it's still a matter of, and I asked, that was one of the questions that I did ask after preseason game one as well. What can you do, right? Because some of it is just anticipation, instinct, all of those things. But hey, it can be a critical point of in a game, in a real game. Because if we go back to, and this is one of my more critique moments, right? Cincinnati Bengals preseason game 2, Commanders defense, you know, first defense against Bengals first offense, 4th down pre-snap penalty on Frankie Louvu. Everybody knows Frankie Louvu is amazing. He's tremendous. This is why he was on the top 100 at number 70, okay? But in a real game, ooh, that would have hurt. That would have hurt so bad, that 4th down penalty. Oh, but hopefully that becomes a teachable moment because everybody knows Frankie Louvu is a master at what he does. But there has to be kind of that balance of, did they just fake you out? It got you to jump, or you know, where can further coaching and all those good things just continue to happen, right? You make those mistakes in preseason, so you don't make them in the regular season. Let's hope. Now, let me go back to pressers. I asked the same question to Coach Witt Jr. Check out his answer here. And I want to make sure I am pulling up the right one. Yep, we got it. Here it is.
Hey, Coach. So I asked Coach Quinn a similar question this morning. So when you look at practice, what kind of equals for you a good day for your defense? And then what would then equal we got to do better at the next practice?
You know, when we go to practice, there's sometimes I know I'm making calls that are going to put them in stressful situations. And so, all right, can we just execute the call? Can we send the ball where we want to send it? There's certain calls that they shouldn't be able to run the ball. So if they run the ball on that call, that's a negative. There's certain calls, all right, if we have outside leverage in the pass game, they can't catch outside breakers. And so as long as we're playing the defense, and then when we get into our situations in our competitive periods, do we win? That's just that simple. You know, do we win those situations in those competitive periods? And that's what we look for. And when we go in there, we put it up on the board. All right, did we win? Did we lose? And why did we win or lose?
So just more insight there into what makes a good practice. And as you're listening to these clips, and when you're listening to the pressers live, or if you go back and watch them, you can then pick up on what you're seeing in game, if you see it, and if you then start to see things improve along the way. Now, quick PSA. If you're just tuning in, you all are watching from Bowie Television, the Coaching from the Couch series. This is your Washington Commanders update. I am Candi CWall Waller, checking in, as I love to do all throughout the season. Make sure you're subscribed to Bowie TV. If you have Comcast, make sure you're watching us on channels 190 and 1097. You can absolutely share this live stream with your favorite Commanders loving family and friends. We're going to keep the conversation going. We'll be doing this the day after the game, for the most part. The day after the game, I've always done lives the day after the game at 7:30 p.m. So lock in, join the conversation live. Still a ton of conversation to get through, because you want to make sure what your recap, what you saw at training camp, translates to what you see in the regular season from the perspective of things that were worked on. So with that being said, let's just keep on rolling through on what were some of the not so great moments. Let's just go into who watched preseason game 1. Drop in the chat if you watched preseason game 1, what you were thinking and feeling after preseason game 1. We could go into that one for quite some time. This was one of the clips from Coach Quinn's presser after that game.
So what I'm looking for over the next 10 days, like really good improvement. And we had made good strides, and even coming up here for the joint, a lot of evaluations that take place between the practice and the game, and that's still the case. And I'll look forward to, going through both and getting to it. There were some things early I saw that I liked. Saw some from Connerly, Amos, Newton, were a couple early that, I saw. And then past that, just like I said, I hated the score. But I want to look at the evaluation. There's still things to get from it. And I expect us to improve a good bit. Our flagship certainly has been on the special team side. To see a score right off the bat, that one was a gut punch. I thought we'd battle back and get right to it, and it never clicked on that way tonight. So you probably saw from an injury standpoint some guys. The only I can fill you in, I'll fill you in more before practice on Sunday. You may have seen Luke walk in. He had an illness pregame. He definitely tried to give it a go. So it's something he'll be back, but I want to make sure I was filling you on that.
So there was much to improve upon coming from that game. And during the lives, everyone, if you've watched me here on lives, and if you've watched on TV as well, and if you've seen me as a guest on other shows, you all typically know that my mother will chime in every once in a while, mostly all the time, and say hello to let everyone know that she's here. My parents watch all the time, everybody. That is the beauty of live television. Your parents can drop in. All the people you love can drop in and say hello, and you want to make sure they're there. That's live TV. So that's what we do here. And so make sure we say hello to her. So you can always say hello to Mama Waller and say hello to Pops Waller as well whenever you see them pop up or at the top of the show, because they definitely do that all of the time. Highlight from training camp. Can we all say burgundy and gold scrimmage? Burgundy and gold scrimmage was certainly one of the highlights. Well, I've talked a bit about players, not a whole lot. If you've been tuned in, you know I focused in on Mikey Sanders still, talked a little bit about the cornerback room overall, but focused in on Mikey and what I saw this summer from him. I want to get into the burgundy and gold game. I asked Coach Quinn before the burgundy and gold scrimmage. I talked right before that game, or keep calling it game. I talked to him before that and asked him what he was most looking forward to. That was certainly something to watch for sure. First teams went against each other, and the depth players went against each other. It was something to behold for sure. Here is a clip from Coach Quinn before the scrimmage. What are you looking forward to most today?
I am looking forward to seeing like the energy. Like I felt this energy from the coaches. They were in these new spots and leaving last night. I really all summer was thinking about, all right, how am I going to do this block that was longer? And I was just thinking the players. And then last night it was so much fun to see the coaches having their own meetings, doing things, putting tape together, going through. So to see the excitement from them, that was probably what I was most excited for. And then at practice, I'm always looking for like execution. I'm looking for communication. I want to be sharp. I want to be crisp. I want to be taking care of the ball, the things that I look for in every practice. But I'm most excited because it was fun to see the coaches in some different spots. All right. Thanks, everybody.
It was definitely one where the players and coaches brought the energy. Where most of the energy came from, and this is what I've been sharing since, if you all have caught me or seen my post online, was the first team defense. They had all the juice in the burgundy and gold scrimmage, and they brought all the smoke along with that juice. It was something. I mean, everything when you talk about when you really talk about the attention to detail and what Coach Quinn was saying there about being crisp, right? That is what you saw a lot of from the first team defense for certain. That was also a day you may have seen that we said, hey, the first team offense isn't having a good day. They aren't. And, we're just recapping all of these things because even from that moment, I've certainly seen, and even up until that moment, there were days where the first team offense was just, Jaden was certainly just lighting up the defense. It was happening like all day. And then there were other moments where it was like the defense was having its way and they were not backing down. And the burgundy and gold scrimmage was one of those moments for certain. I asked Coach Witt about his thoughts on this, and here's what he had to say about what he saw, and then we'll get into what Dan Quinn had to say about what he saw from the burgundy and gold scrimmage.
Hey, Coach, when you look back to last week's joint practice with New England and then think about the scrimmage on Tuesday, what are some of the areas you would like to see your defense kind of just shape more of or improve at?
The scrimmage, if we could play like we did in the scrimmage, especially the one defense, that's what it should look like. Like the scrimmage, it was pretty damn good. The New England practice, they got into. I thought we started off and we got after them pretty good. They got in the red area at Skelly. We got after them pretty good also. They got in the red area and they got after us. The quarterback scrambled for a touchdown in practice, and then they scrambled. Now the second time when Dobbs scrambled, we made them work for that one. But the other one, they just stepped up. So we have to understand the rush lanes. And once we get into the low red, we were in some single gap defenses, and I know our ones weren't out there. But I'm talking about the game now. But they were able to hit some runs that they shouldn't have been able to hit. In the practice, they weren't able to hit them. I mean, so the practice when our ones were out there, they did a nice job. And then in the scrimmage was what I envisioned this defense to be. It was really good.
Yes, And so again, that was a moment where I'm like, I know what I'm watching, and this is something else right here. Okay. Because it wasn't, it's always the notion around, some plays and some things are created for certain position groups to win versus the other. But this was a real scrimmage. So keep that in mind. Now let's go to the clip of when I asked Dan Quinn about some of his wow moments from the scrimmage.
Hey, Coach, is it still morning? Good morning.
Good morning. We're still getting our time bearings. We're good.
Were there any moments in the burgundy and gold scrimmage that made you say, wow, that was awesome?
Yeah, I think going through it, you want to see different spaces. I love seeing the extended plays, outside the pocket. I saw Sam, on a scramble that converted. I really liked seeing, the corners play where they're at. Their team had more disguises, and I just liked it was crisp, it was sharp. Still trying to there was 2 penalties pre-snap, so those are ones that I didn't like, but there was definitely some wows. Mikey had some. Kinlaw, I thought, was some. DA for sure. I liked a couple of the throws I said by Sam. Those were a few that jumped out to me.
So we've already talked about Mikey Samerstill. I'm going to keep on talking about Mikey, but no, you all may have also heard me talk a bit about Javon Kinlaw on some shows, and I've asked Coach previously about Javon Kinlaw as well. Great addition to that defensive line and makes his presence known. You will not miss him. Sometimes I may have shared, and if you all are subscribed to the channel or watch on television, you may have come across some of my exclusive insights from camp that I would do right after camp was, during camp and right after camp was over. We would share it out and we would air it. And I would always say at some point I would just be watching, and that's what I do. I may watch and just say, let me see who makes me look. Like made you look. Javon Kinlaw, more times than I could count, made me look. And that's been all summer. And so, of course, then I want to dig deep and really dive into his background, who he is, what he's doing to get faster. It would seem like almost every single practice. So, that defensive line, you think about, again, another position group where you look at the roster from last year, you look at the roster this year, and you say, okay, have there been improvements made? I would say so. I would absolutely say so. So also he mentioned DA, that's Dorrance Armstrong. If you may not know who he meant by DA at that time, not in that moment, the great David Aldridge, not DA, not that DA. We're talking about Dorrance Armstrong on the defensive line. Also very impressive training camp as well. So here's another player that I asked Coach Quinn about after preseason game 3, because he didn't play, but I saw how much of an impact he was making on the sidelines for his teammates. He too got an extension, and that is special teams ace, safety, Jeremy Reeves. Jeremy had an excellent camp, and we talk so much about leaders, and I'm always going to go back to the leaders of the postseason or the captains of the postseason, and Jeremy Reeves was one of those. And that was a significant extension, for Jeremy Reeves. Let's also talk about the fact that they're keeping Percy Butler. They've seen what Percy brings as well. But I asked Coach Quinn about Jeremy Reeves because I've seen so much growth. It's almost like seeing someone just be in the right environment or be in the right space for them, and they just blossom. It was always there, but he has definitely just leaps and bounds. So I asked Coach Quinn about him. Check this out.
And while he didn't play today, Jeremy Reeves, I shared with him just a moment ago, we were chatting about how active he was on the sidelines. I was calling him Coach Reeves because that's what it looked like from where we were sitting. So can you share just what you have also learned about him over this time period and what you've seen?
Yeah, I love the guy. He is a absolute warrior and commander, through and through. He's also now he's established himself as a leader because of the high standards that he holds himself to, and now seeing him bring others along as a leader, that's a really big deal. And so not too many years ago, he earned his way on the team, on special teams, and making plays. And so to see him live that life fully and now adding, more roles on defense, that's a really big deal. But I think just the love of football, the love of his teammates, those are a few things that stick out to me. But yeah, I'd heard the same, he was coaching somebody up before I even, got to the sideline today.
So make a note, Jeremy Reeves, everybody. Okay. Another takeaway from training camp is as I talk through all the things that I've saw, as well as some of the players who stood out, and all of them stood out. Let me be clear, but we would definitely be here all night if I talked about each player individually. You know what I mean? So Jeremy Reeves is absolutely one to note. And if you all are just tuning in, welcome to the Bowie Television Live of Coaching from the Couch, or from the Coaching from the Couch series, the Washington Commanders Update. I am your host, Candi CWall Waller. I hope you are subscribed to the channel, or I hope you're watching on Comcast channels 190 or 1097. I am on site, on the beat, as everyone likes to say, on the beat. So I'm sharing my insights from training camp and preseason, and then along the way sharing some expectations as well of what I'm thinking and who you all need to be watching out for as the season starts this week, week 1. Another player I heard you all asking a lot about, and rightfully so, and this is another player who I had my eyes on last year. If you all were watching and locked in with Bowie TV last year, you knew that I was really excited about Jordan McGee, linebacker Jordan McGee. And Jordan has dealt with some injuries, and yet he still just comes back like he never left. So hoping for great things for him, and that he's able to have the season that he wants to have. And of course, it's always barring any injury. That's for any player. But I also asked Coach Quinn about Jordan McGee. Check this out.
Hey, Coach, you just mentioned Jordan McGee's name, and I know over the last year he's dealt with some injuries. And so can you share a bit about what you've learned from, about him and how he's dealt with that adversity and through the injuries and everything you saw today?
I think the word I think of when I think of Jordan is resilience. This is a really hardened, tough competitor. When the injuries can happen, you can see on some it can be, not again, or here we go, but not this guy. He is just built differently. He's very mentally hardened in that way. And so for him, we weren't going to let him miss one step, in his way on the way back. And I was very excited to see him play and get rolling today. He's worked hard to get back. I knew that he would, but it was still excellent to see him, Javonte out there, Brandon Coleman. So we had some guys that were on the way back. I was pleased that they got some extra work today, Amos. So there were some that were, as we got into some work last week, and we get them some into the game. And so even sometimes, Candi, 5 or 6 plays, it's worth it. The pregame, getting out there, getting ready. And I was pleased to see it with those 4, but Jordan especially.
And so with that, you also hear Coach Quinn talking about Javonte, Jean-Baptiste. You hear him talking about Brandon Coleman as well, because we know that Javonte had dealing with some injuries during the preseason, and he was able to work back, as well as Brandon Coleman. We know that for preseason game 3, Brandon Coleman was initially not slated to play and asked for those reps. Because why? He's smart. But seriously, and he loves to play. Yes, all of those things are true. But he wanted those reps at a new position. So if you're still locked in, love button or love or fire emojis in the chat, so I know that you're still watching, you're still listening, and you think it's pretty dope that even though he didn't have to play and was slated not to, he said, hey, I still need these game reps at this new position, these live game reps, because it absolutely matters. The preseason absolutely matters. And that was one of the things that I definitely asked Coach Quinn about as well, about the preseason. You all may have seen that post, and I posted it or was listening to that press conference, because I asked the coach so many times. People are like, so what about the preseason, right? What, who cares, right? Or what's the big deal? Why does that matter? And I'm thinking, at first we were kind of like, do we run this one? Maybe not. Let's see. Maybe we'll run it later on in the show. But for right now, let's move on to another player that I'm like, listen, you all saw some of my media colleagues talking about this player before preseason game 3 during warmups. And I was trying to ask him the question, and so it did come out as clean and as crisp. But this player here is been more of a, just a huge competitor, and just has been an asset to this team. And definitely write this one down.
Hey, Noah.
I'm feeling well. Anytime it's good to get back out on the field with the guys and, participate, it's a good feeling. So, I'm ready to get going.
And I'm going to play this clip as well.
That you may have, we were here one day at practice. You had a situation, you had to go out, maybe injury related, but it looks like you're doing well. You're engaged in practice. So overall, how was kind of like that process in terms of maybe thinking you were injured and it wasn't as bad as perhaps you thought it may have been?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you get banged up, it's not fun. But I was blessed to be okay and be able to get back in time for training camp and work out with the guys and build towards what we're trying to accomplish. So I'm excited about it.
So, during the preseason, during this time of year, you do not have to report, teams do not have to report out on what the injuries are, what it may have been, and that's totally fine. Here's what I can tell you. Just as I've shared other players and mentioned, when you think about this wide receiver room, Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, Noah Brown, Jalen Lane, Luke McCaffrey. We'll see if they add anyone else, because right now, at the time of this live, there's 5 wide receivers, right? And they have about 3 or so others, right, on the practice squad. But when you think about those 5 and the competitive nature of that group and just the overall talent, there's a lot to be excited about. I've talked about Jalen Lane on other shows, not so much on this one, but again, this rookie class, all 5 of them, Commanders. So you know what I mean by that, okay? Because we've talked a lot about on these shows about the Commanders standard. Absolutely, these 5 are legit. So Noah Brown coming back, and as he said, was happy to be able to come back in time for camp. He looks ready to rock. So we'll see what happens, but certainly you can really see it all come together once you got, Terry back out there, Noah back out there. You see Deebo, and you're like, oh, now we understand the energy Cliff Kingsbury was bringing a few weeks ago in his presser when he's like, this is time on task. I got to be able to see all my pieces at the same time and see everybody together. Good to see that band back together, because that is going to be a treat for certain. Definitely drop in the chat if you have any thoughts there, but for certain, keep your eyes on that one. Now I'm going to move into some of my thoughts going into the season, right? So I asked Coach Quinn on the last day of training camp about improvements, and then I also asked him last week about the run defense, because some of what he said in his answer regarding improvements was some of the things that I picked up on and I had noted. So I'm going to share that clip. I'm also going to share the clip about the run defense, because that is something that, while I think it's better than last year this time, could certainly be better. And if you take a good look at the schedule, you know that this is certainly an area that the Commanders absolutely need to be on point with. So let's check out this clip on the improvements.
Hey, Coach. So last day of training camp, and I think I asked you this question last year as well on the last day of training camp.
Oh, my gosh, I got to go get the transcript.
Which is there anything keeping you up at night right now? I mean, there's always room for improvement all the time on everything, right? But is there anything that you're like, man, I wish we could have nailed that during camp?
Yeah, it's funny like that. The things that are going good don't keep you up at night. It's the things that you're struggling with and stressed about to go. So this time of year, it's the roster and giving insight to Adam and to his team to make sure we're nailing it, the right playing time at a practice or a game for the evaluations to get there. Fortunately, we've hit a lot of the things that stress me out. Is the team ready for these end-of-game moments? And so last year, we were new together, and so it was also new for me communicating with Cliff and Joe and Larry in game. We're going to go for here on fourth if it gets to 1, 2, or 3. So for me, having another lap at that all through camp, that's been good. So my biggest stressor is just providing the right information, getting the right looks, and it'll be a tough team for the 53, tough decisions for sure. But as a coach, that's also what you want. To say, man, these are some really tough decisions. And so I'm definitely looking at those, and that's what's keeping me up.
So keep those things in mind. And some of what he was sharing in terms of the communications across with the coaches, that's still going back to communications overall. And also the messaging of the in-game, like the last minute wins, like just the nail biters, what they were calling the cardiac commanders, all of that. I think this season is going to be a bit different. Not that they can't still win at the clock striking 0, but it's still a notion of, was that luck? Was it just a good year? Is this really real with the Washington Commanders in this culture? And I think this is the year to kind of stamp in year 2 to say, yeah, this is real. This is real what Adam Peters and Coach Quinn are building here, and what Josh Harris and his ownership group, everybody, when you get a chance, always thank them as well, and what they're paying for. Think it's really real. Now, I asked Coach Quinn about the run defense. Take a listen to what he shared with me.
Hey, Coach. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm trying to decide which one. So when you take a look at the preseason and you all's performance, run defense performance, what were your takeaways there, and how did that mirror to where you all landed on the roster?
Sure. I would say our tackling got better as we went, Candi. So first game, I didn't like it at all. Second game got better. As we got to Baltimore, I liked it better. As far as the run defense goes, if I just counted the preseason games, it'd be incomplete. So in totality, I like where we've added guys into the mix. Eddie, JK, Wise, like these are some big, strong guys inside. So I'm pleased with the trajectory there. So it was a combination of adding some personnel, and then I would say like the technique feels better going into it. It'll always be something I see us working on, but our tackling, that's to me the top of the pile. And we're not where I think we need to be and will be. I feel that way every year at this time because it's the thing we don't do full on. And so tackling feels like it gets better defensively kind of as the season grows, and you got to stay on the skill for that. But I'm much more pleased than I am a year ago sitting here at this time, that's for sure.
So my biggest takeaway from that is I'll be watching for that. I'm going to be watching for many things, but you all know I'm going to be watching there. I'm going to have my eye on special teams. Those who have checked me out before know I'm a special teamer, so I'm going to have my eyes locked in on special teams for several different reasons. And that is, but the run defense will have my eyes there. If you were to have any questions for me, definitely send along a super chat or something where I can know that's when you have any questions. I think I've answered many of them. But going into week 1 against the New York Giants, None of these games are flukes. None of them. And I'm going to close the show out with something that I think is very important in terms of a recurring theme about the displays of brotherhood. Some of the displays of brotherhood that I saw with my own eyes, and knowledge of the situation, being on site. Because none of these games are a fluke. And at the end of the day, you have to really see and know that these guys really, really genuinely like one another, really love one another. Because then sometimes it be two things. You gotta like, you gotta love, and you gotta, what is it? You gotta like the people that you love, right? And what that means for how they approach games. During free agency signings, one of the recurring questions I was asking new players coming into the system, veteran players coming into this system, was what's the word on the street about the Washington Commanders when you played them last year? That was one of the questions I had to Jacob Martin, who had a great camp. That was one of the questions I also had to Will Harris, who had a great camp. Again, mentioning Javon Kinlaw, again, he had a great camp. I know specifically those three I asked in their free agent signing press conferences about what the word out there was about the Commanders, what they saw, Will Harris and Jacob Martin, when they played against the Commanders. And everything is still locked in the same, right? In terms of the energy, that communication, that will to win, that thinking that they're going to beat anybody. Like, that's just them, and just getting it, but not in an arrogant way per se. It's swag for certain. Let me be clear. It's swag for certain, but it's also the knowledge of the trust of their film study and what they're doing in the film room, the trust of the relationship they have with their coaches, all of them, and how they're all working together. So none of these games are a fluke. They're all hard. They're all going to be hard. Every single last one of them. You could win all of them. You could lose all of them, right? I think that it's always the notion that nobody wants to lose all of them, right? That's that. Okay. But each one will be a challenge. And the Commanders are starting their season off with a short week. And Coach Quinn did share, we kind of preferred having the short week. Just get it out the way now, right? But the New York Giants aren't the same New York Giants. And that short week now to the Green Bay Packers, no longer the Green Bay Packers aren't the same either, because, thanks a lot, Jerry Jones. It's one thing to get Micah Parsons out of the division, but it's a whole other thing when you still have to end up seeing Micah Parsons because you actually play the team that he plays for now. Okay. So the Green Bay Packers are different because that one player makes a difference. So you look straight up the first two games. You get into week 3. We already know they got Pete Carroll there. They got a lot of changes there, but the love and the affection that so many have for Pete Carroll and the respect that is there across the league and with some of the players and coaches who are Commanders that they have for Pete Carroll. Then you look at it at the Atlanta Falcons. We already know they're going to be out for revenge, right, about what happened in Northwest Stadium. They'll be in their house. Then you look at, the Chargers have a team. You look at the Dallas Cowboys. You go down the list, and we could talk about it all day. Then Chicago Bears coming back to Northwest Stadium. That's going to be a primetime game, and all eyes are going to be so much on this team that none of these games will be easy. It will all be hard. And I think at the root of it all, they have this brotherhood for real. And it's really, really real. And if I'm being transparent with you all, for a moment, I was like, is the brotherhood being impacted? And we're going to get to that in a moment because it's a part of the displays of brotherhood. But I'm going to get into the brotherhood now because I could talk about that a long time, about what I've seen and what I've witnessed. But I'm going to share through these pressers where I've seen the displays of brotherhood. And I could stamp what they're saying is absolutely accurate. I saw many, Jeremy Reeves coaching up his teammates on the sideline during preseason game 3. That's one, because I saw many, but that's one that I wanted to highlight. Here's another one.
It's been a great day. Both sides of the ball just feels good to be back playing football. You wait the whole off season, you train, you get your body back right, get your mind back right. And then you get back around your teammates, back around your brothers, back around the people that you love playing football with. And it's just exciting to be out here. I love being out here every single day with these guys and just enjoying doing what we love.
Mikey Sanders still said it, and I had been seeing it already. I mean, these guys look like they're having the time of their life. And I think I said it on shout out to Fox Sports 1340 and the Urban Sports Scene. I think I said it on their show one time when I think someone asked me about, the playing the Eagles again or anything like that. And I'm like, hey, at the end of the day, these are guys that love playing football, and they love playing football together. Like, it's not a joke. It's not like a show they're putting on. They are genuinely happy to be at work. They're happy and they're excited and they want to be there and they want to win. And it is very dope to see. Here was another display of brotherhood. And I'm keep going through these displays of brotherhood because in the end and at the end of the day, you all, I really think that's what's going to keep this crew together. And that's what's going to keep them focused on what the goal is. Because they were clear. We were all thought it was cute that they wanted to go to the Super Bowl. It's like, that's nice. Everybody wants to go there. That's fantastic. That's nice. That's cute. That's nice. But no, they're serious. I think this brotherhood bond that they have that organically happened is a real thing. Here's another display of brotherhood that I witnessed, and I asked Coach Quinn about it.
And you mentioned that yesterday you talked about the different displays of brotherhood that you saw on Monday night. And Jaden shared with us about getting the touchdown ball for Bill. And he said that Zach and Terry did the same thing for him.
Who did?
He said that Zach and Terry did the same thing for him last year.
Right on.
That's what Jaden shared. And so, okay, I guess that's new news for you. Maybe you didn't know.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I know his first touchdown pass was to. Mm-hmm. I do remember that. But I don't remember it from the preseason. That's cool.
And so, but witnessing what you did, watch Jaden do that for Bill, how did that make you feel as the head coach?
One, I wasn't surprised that it was him. I didn't know that he was doing it, and then he was going from one referee to the next to make sure he had the exact ball. So I think it's an example of like who Jaden is, and it's a nice thing to pass down to someone else too. Hopefully, Bill can put himself into that spot one day. And those are the things from players to players, peer to peer. When you see it, you just know what it looks like. And I saw a lot of it in the game. I saw, like I said, Jonathan Jones in a rain jacket on the sideline coaching guys up. So the environment that we've created here through the players is like, one, like, can they really push it to be excellent? But there's also just random acts like that. Like, Jade is an exceptionally good dude, and so, like, he wasn't going to miss that moment. It had nothing to do with teaching Bill. He was just, like, wanting to celebrate with him. So there were a lot of people that would have done it, but I'm not surprised it was him. It was so clear that he remembered that moment, and I think that's a cool way to pay it forward, and hopefully another person who's a rookie can pass it on to another rookie as a yearly tradition. That's pretty cool. Cool.
So Coach Quinn shared some other moments, but I think, again, huge moment. I was like, this is happening everywhere. And as Coach Quinn said, he knows a lot of other people that would have done that. That's the type of space this is. He talked about player to player in that clip, but I saw a display of brotherhood last week between Dan Quinn and Adam Peters in this clip. Now, this clip is important in what was shared in this clip, but I absolutely saw a display of brotherhood amongst the two of them, as I always do, but I did want to highlight this moment.
Adam, to go back to the Terry situation, obviously you've been in front offices, you've seen how the sausage gets made, but it's the first time with you in the role of GM. Did you kind of What was that like? Did you learn anything that was new about yourself, about this process as you went through it, especially since it was a little bit of a tense situation?
Yeah. Well, don't forget about Sam. We did the deal with Sam last year, so. But yeah, I mean, they're all different. I guess that's the point, is they're all different, right? And there's you're dealing with different people with just kind of different personalities and different goals of what they want to get done. So every deal is a little bit different, and some are longer than others, some are shorter than others. Some you start with different perspectives than the other side, and you have to come to an agreement there. So I think every single thing we do here is a learning experience, from negotiation with Sam, negotiation with Terry, to the 53 cut downs this year versus last year. And you're always learning, you're always growing, and hopefully we'll keep getting better at that. And you never want you certainly never want a negotiation to go this long, and certainly if you can avoid it, not to bring it into training camp. And sorry about that, but but we'll learn from that, and take the things that maybe I could have done better throughout the process, and try to apply that to the next time we do this. We're going to do a lot of these here, hopefully, and hopefully we keep getting better at them.
I'm sorry about that Adam Peters did with Dan Quinn. While that may have been small to others, a person in myself and Bowie TV and what we're doing here is in tracking the displays of brotherhood, especially when the team was facing adversity, right? Waiting for Terry's contract extension to go through, which they were positive about always, right? But waiting for that to happen, trading Brian Robinson Jr., and still seeing those consistent displays of brotherhood, Adam Peters in that moment, because hey, now Dan Quinn has to answer all of the questions in pressers that it's like, okay, that's an Adam question, but he has to get it, right? That's why after the signing, in that particular press conference, if you saw it, it was like Dan Quinn said 2 words. It was all Adam, because that's really the front office deal. But Dan Quinn had to deal with it. And had to deal with it, even from his coaches, right? The offensive coordinator, you got to deal with it. And I felt that warm moment in the sorry about that, because you don't want it to go into training camp, because now it's national news. It's one thing when it's local news amongst us, but now it's national news. And now you got to, plan different and do this and do that, because you're missing a key piece. And so I thought that was a dope display. Whether or not they intended on it or not, I wanted to highlight it because I thought it was an important point. Y'all know who I am about these important points. And the last display of brotherhood that I want to share with you all, I made a comment a moment ago in the live about wondering, is this a distraction? Is this a distraction? This being Terry not being signed, a distraction, a hard point, a point of issue for the team as it came to Terry, right? I wanted to know. I wanted to see and figure it out, see what I was sensing. And I was assured that it was not. And preseason game 3, I think many people saw, and it was discussed about the moments or the extent of the conversation that, the public saw Bobby Wagner talking to Terry McLaurin. And I'm going to share this one last, because while sometimes even a media who is there they're a lot every day, we're not there all day. So we don't see all the things that's transpiring, right? Going back to a clip I shared earlier where Adam Peters, and I highlighted earlier, where Adam Peters shared in the press conference about how much Terry McLaurin came to his office and how much they talked, right? I asked Terry McLaurin about his relationship with Bobby Wagner, and you may have watched this clip. You may have seen it in the press conference. But I think it's a very important point to share what Terry McLaurin shared about his relationship with B-Wags.
Hey, Terry, congratulations again.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
speaking of your teammates, can
Yeah.
you share a bit before we close out about your relationship with Bobby Wagner?
Yeah, honestly, Bobby really helped me a lot during this process. Obviously, I've been a vet and a older guy in the locker room for a long time here, and when you get to this stage of your career, year 7, it's hard to find other vets for you. You know what I mean? I think there's levels when you look at guys in their stages of their career. And, I'm obviously one of the vets and leaders on this team, but Bobby Wagner's done it all. He's going to be a Hall of Famer. He's an extreme competitor. He's elite on the field. He's been an All-Pro. The list goes on. He's an entrepreneur. He's an owner. He's all these things. He's an unbelievable teammate, and he's going to shoot it to you straight every single time. And so to have a guy that not only supported me but continued to allow me to see the big picture on how I should handle this, how I should think about this scenario. And at no point he was trying to steer me to do X, Y, or Z. He just tried to give me all the tools that he could, all the knowledge and wisdom that he could to help me make the best informed decision and be where I'm happy. And I'm extremely happy for him and the relationship that we've developed, not just over this last month or so, but even last year. I have the utmost respect for Bobby and the way he goes about his business. And I'd be very fortunate to be the kind of player that he is by the time I'm hopefully at that point in my career. You know what I mean? To hopefully I've won a Super Bowl and can be heading to the Hall of Fame, and all the guys in the locker room look up to you and respect you as a man, respect you as a person, respect you as a father. Like, that's really what it's about. And so I respect him in all those areas, and I know that he's going to continue to help me in any way that he can, and he's an open book for me to throw my ideas off of. And so he makes me better. And to have that, like I said, I'm one of the older guys on the team. I'm one of the more seasoned vets on the team, but he's a guy who's done even more and seen even more than I have. Same with Zach. Like, those are two guys that I lean on because they've done this at a high level, and they're going to be legends when they're done playing. So I hope I could be the same one day. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
So you all, this is your week 1 live concluded, Bowie TV style, with your hostess with the mostest, I hope you think, Candi CWall Waller. I thank you all for watching this over an hour live stream. And if you're watching on TV, you can always join the live stream. Just mark your calendars. The day after the game at 7:30 p.m. is when we go live on the Bowie TV YouTube channel and talk the Commanders and talk game and talk all of that stuff. So thank you all for joining the first live of this season, because we've been doing this for a bit. So I'm glad you all have joined us. But recapping training camp, preseason, highs, lows, outlook for the season, closing message, all of the games are going to be hard. I think let's focus on this brotherhood thing. Now, I'll be doing some shows throughout the week to really get into some of the keys of success. Looking forward to being back on site with the team this week after a short break. And as they get ready for the New York Giants, this is not a team to sleep on. None of them are. But it's going to be exciting. So I'll be checking in throughout the week again. You all will definitely see me. But when you get me to yourself, this is where it will happen. And that is on Bowie TV from the Coaching from the Couch series, the Washington Commanders Update. I will be seeing you all again soon.